I don't think that Adrienne Young gets the attention she deserves. She's a pretty good YA writer. This is her only her second series she's ever written, and The Sky and the Deep was good too. Like, she writes really good female characters, and her worlds are always like, Sky in the Deep was Viking. She always has like a really great world. Her characters are her romance is usually pretty good. She has pretty good themes, found family. Like, she's a really good writer, and I just feel like she doesn't get the attention she deserves. So if you have not read Fable or Sky in the Deep, I encourage you to do so, because I think she's one of the better.
Welcome to the Novel Universe with your hostesses Ashley and Dawn. We rate and review the newest and most buzzworthy books. We are true book club girls who don't always agree, but do enjoy a good book discussion. I'm Ashley, the fantasy architect.
And I'm Dawn, the criticizer of books.
Grab your favorite beverage and come and enjoy our universe. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Novel Universe with your hostesses Ashley and Dawn. Today we are coming to you with a sequel of a book that is already out. This is Namesake by Adrienne Young. It is book 2 in the Fable series, or duology, if you will. This is actually going to be released on March 16th. We were fortunate enough to get an ARC from Edelweiss, and so we were able to review it for you guys a little bit sooner. So if you have not read Fable, the first book in this duology, you are not going to know what we are talking about. But if you enjoyed the sound of our voice, just hang on to the ride, because we're going to talk about book 2 in this duology here. Mm-hmm. So, okay, Namesake. Traitor, fighter, survivor. With the Marigold ship free of her father, Fable and its crew were set to start over. That freedom is short-lived when she becomes a pawn in a notorious thug scheme. In order to get to her intended destination, she must help him secure a partnership with Holland, a gem trader who is more than she seems. As Fable descends deeper into a world of betrayal and deception, she learns that her mother was keeping secrets, and those secrets are now putting the people Fable cares about in danger. If Fable is going to save them, then she must risk everything, including the boy she loves and the home she has finally found. And Dawn. What are we going to give this book of a rating? What are we going to rate it?
Well, I gave it a 2.5.
Oh!
I'm kidding. Of course I didn't give this a 2.5. I'm kidding. I gave it... I thought you were going to be, like, really upset. No.
I was like...
No, I gave it a 4.25. I liked it better than the first book. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Okay. Yeah, I gave it about that as well. Between a 4 or 2.5. It wasn't really a 4.5 for me, and we'll discuss that here in just a minute, because there were just some little things that I was like,
yeah,
what is happening? Wait, okay, so it's there, but it's not there, but it's okay. I'm okay with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
I found myself doing that when I was like writing down the rating. I was like, is it 4? It's not a 5. Is it 4.5? I don't know. Not really. Is it 3.5? No.
Yeah.
That's a little harsh. No, this is actually better than some of the stuff we've read.
Exactly, and that's what I did. At first I was gonna give it a 4, and then I went through my Goodreads to look at other books that I rated at 4, and I was like, did I like this book better or worse than that book? And then at the last second I upped it, because I think I kind of rated it against Chain of Gold, which I gave a 4, okay. And I liked it better than Chain of Gold, but I didn't like it better than The Other Side of the Sky. So I know some people don't compare books, which is cool, but that's how I rate books sometimes. I have to compare it to other stuff.
Yeah, no, that's really okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing the same exact thing over here where it's like, Dawn and I have had a pretty rough year in some of our
Oh my God, especially with YA.
So it's like, when you get something good, you're like,
hallelujah.
You're almost guessing yourself a little bit, like, It's good. Yeah, no, it is good. This is what good looks like.
Yes. Oh man.
Because last year we praised Fable on our podcast numerous times with our our mid-year talk, and then even in our final top 10, I gave Fable a 5, and I think you gave it a
4. Mm-hmm. A 4.
Right? Okay, yeah. So it was very well liked among our podcast, so I was excited to read this one. So,
yeah.
Here we go.
We're
going to start with our dislikes. What were some dislikes and or nitpicks that you had?
I only had one dislike, and the rest of them are nitpicks, which is unusual for Dawn, because I normally have a page and a half of dislikes. So good on me to only have one. I thought the villain could have been better. I love villains, and she was set up to be, or he. We don't know who the villain is. We're not going to say. It's a spoiler. We'll talk about in the spoiler edition. But this person was set up to be amazing and just didn't quite deliver enough for me. If the villain had been better, I would have given it a 4.5. Well, maybe a 4.35. Maybe not 4.
Honestly, I would have given this book a 4.5, 5 if the villain was better.
Okay.
Because that was literally my number one biggest complaint, was when we're finally introduced to who the actual villain is in this story, it's not for very long, and then all of a sudden when it kind of comes to the big crescendo, you're like, that's it? It could have been like amazing, because everything else up until that point was like, yes, come on. And
yeah.
It's like, okay.
And the demise of the villain was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That's what happens when you read YA, people. Things only go so far. I guess I'm gonna go to nitpicks, because that was kind of like my biggest dislike as well.
Yeah.
I had a nitpick where I felt that we kind of lost track of a lot of the secondary characters that we became attached to in the first book.
Yeah.
And I was almost disappointed when we finally get to them, and then it's like their stories we start to get a little bit more as to what's happened to them or what they want to do in their life, and then it's just like cut, and you just move forward. And my one in particular, which I'll talk about in the spoiler, was like, that's part of the reason why I struggled between my rating, is because it really bothered me, because Young made it such an apparent part of her book, and it just kind of fell out with one of the characters. And then it's like, they resurface again. You're like, oh, okay. I think I'm okay with that ending. Okay. But that was one of my biggest nitpicks with this book.
Okay, I think I have that also as a nitpick. Let me see. Yes. I put that under pacing, which is weird because I like the pacing, but then I had a nitpick about the pacing. I thought it was a little too quick. Normally, I complain that the book is too long, but this is only like 368 pages. It's really short. And I would have been happier with a little bit more character development. And the character I'm going to say, I think your character might be a spoiler, that's why you didn't say. But for me, it was Austier, whatever we say his name. Austier and Padge, she introduced something new about him. But once again, it was like, I kind of want a little bit more about his backstory. Padge, we got nothing with his backstory. Which is fine. If he's not an important character, fine. But I was going into this book thinking we're going to learn more about the other characters, because I think the only character we got in the first book was Willa. And a little bit of Austier and Padge, but no. So, yeah. It was rushed. His story was rushed. It was, yeah.
Like Hamish, I think his name is.
Yeah, I don't know
is
his
the
point.
Guy. And so it's like these are all like members of the crew of the Marigold that you're like, yes, I know all of these people and they're coming back, and oh, okay. So we'll save the rest of that for a spoiler part there. But my next little nitpick is that I really felt that between our two main characters, Fable and West, there is a lot of animosity that's happening. There's a lot of tension that's happening. And I kind of felt like in this book, they had a lot of unresolved hurts that they kind of just like glossed over a little bit. It wasn't really ever dealt with. There were some parts where it's like, is that an okay enough answer? Does that speak to West's character? That I kind of had like that moment where I was like, I don't really like what's happening because I don't feel like y'all are talking about your problems to each other.
Interesting, because I had the actual opposite.
Oh, really?
I thought everything was wrapped up pretty well, actually. So I'm curious to find out what specifically you're talking about. If it's not a spoiler, we can.
Yeah, no, the wrap up of everything was great. The in between parts, I was like, say what's on your heart. Just say it. Just do it. Why don't you look at each other?
I thought they did, though. I was satisfied with it. Okay,
Dawn. Seems like a little animosity in your relationship.
Well, yeah, we'll get to it in the spoiler. I think it's spoilers. Okay, I have a really tiny nitpick before my bigger nitpick. My tiny one, and this happens a lot in YA, and I say YA because that's what I mostly read. I don't have a big, like, inventory of adult books to draw from. So, but in YA fantasy, usually the main character is, rough and tumble, and she don't wear no damn dresses, and blah, blah, blah. And so this was also in this book. And one thing that it bothers me is when the author makes it seem like just because you wear a dress, you're not a feminist. Just because you like dresses, that's a bad thing. And in this book, Fable says, good to be out of that ridiculous frock. And if it was a one-off, I would let it go. But because she was put in several dresses and Adrienne Young really wanted us to know that. And for her to say that, it's just like, can we not do that? Just because you like dresses, it doesn't make you a bad person or vapid. You can like dresses and be a feminist. I know it wasn't like, it's not her character to wear dresses, and that's fine. And maybe she should have said after good to be out of this ridiculous frock because I prefer to wear pants, or because blah, blah, blah. If she had finished that sentence, maybe it wouldn't have felt so belittling to all people who like dresses. And this is coming from someone who doesn't wear dresses, but I was like, Dawn don't wear no dresses. I don't wear dresses, but I don't look down. That's because I don't like my calves. But I don't look down on women who do. I don't think that it's ridiculous because they, you know what I mean? It's a tiny nitpick, but I'm kind of sick of hearing it. Same thing with like corsets and stuff. Like, just because you like a corset, back in the day, this would have taken place in the 17th century, maybe, I don't know. But she probably would. Well, I think she did wear a corset or something like that. Like,
she did.
Yeah. If you're wearing a corset to fall into this standard of beauty that is unattainable, that's bad. But if you wear a corset or Spanx, as we do now, because you want a smoother line in your dress, that's okay. You shouldn't feel bad about that. We wear bras to make our breasts rounder. That's not a bad thing. It's, it's undergarments to enhance. And we shouldn't feel, I hated when they put people in the corsets, which she didn't do. She wasn't like, oh my God, this corset, I can't breathe. She didn't do that in this book, thank God. But I hate that.
But they still asked her in the book, what, have you never worn a corset before? And it's like,
Well, she probably wouldn't have.
Demoralizing. Of course she hasn't, like, worn a corset. She's lived on a ship her whole bloody life. What does she need one for?
Exactly. Her class of people wouldn't have worn a corset. Yeah.
Well, little side tangent there.
Sorry.
Dawn and I are all for the dresses. It's okay. Let's see. Do I have another little... I think we covered... Yeah, because you covered about some of the plot being a little bit like... We kind of lost some of it behind. I think that's all I really... I have one, and I don't know... I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
I felt the romance was a little... meh. Like, it was okay. I wasn't, like in the first book, I was like, just kiss her already. Come on. You know, this book, I was like, do you not like each other anymore? But you do, but you don't. It was okay. Like I said, how it ends up working out, it's fine for my taste. But there were some moments where I was like,
I think I know why. So one of the bigger themes in this book is love and how a person's how love impacts other people around them. And I think like in the first book, he didn't want to love her. He didn't want to love her because he knew it was going to affect his life and everybody on the ship's life, his crew's life, and he didn't want to do that. And I think it continued on in this book where they didn't want, and I'll talk about this in the I don't know, some edition. One of those. Probably is full edition. So I think they didn't want to fall in love because of what that would mean. It's a big thing in their world to be in love and to show it. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just felt like we had gotten over that hump.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
From the end of of the first book. And so when we went into this, I was like, I thought we did this already.
Okay.
You know, because like when you get the reasonings behind everything, it's like, oh, okay. I'm okay with how that happened. Like it did make sense. That's why I said it's just a little nitpick. It's not a big one. For my own personal self, I was like, okay.
You know what though? And I've kind of felt that way too, especially when they finally meet up and they're in the same bed. I was like, ooh, it's gonna be kissing. And they were like roommates in the same bed for a while. And I was like, okay, are we not kissing or what's happening?
Do we not do that anymore? Is there a code on the ship not to? Anyway, okay, what is your big nitpick?
Okay.
I know you want to tell me.
Well, yeah, I have to. Okay, so my big nitpick is that there were several times where Fable would be having a conversation with another character, and then she would say, I understand what she meant, blah, 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 blah. And basically, Fable has to explain what the conversation is about. And this is a pet peeve of mine. Because I hate when authors do this because it's like they don't trust the reader to infer what the conversation is about. And when the author doesn't do that, then it makes their book not critical. And Adrienne Young is a good writer, and I think one of the reasons why she's not great is because she does the thinking for the reader. And it's so unfortunate because if she would just not do that, it would elevate her book. And Fable did it so many times. I'm like, oh my God, girl, I understand what the conversation was. I'm not a dumb, you know, like, I don't need you to explain. I know. And that bothered me. That bothered me. But that's it.
I had that mixed with, like, plot, like, stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on to our likes, unless you have any more.
Nope.
Okay, that's a short list for Dawn, ladies and gentlemen.
It is.
Usually she's like, hold on a second, I have more. Like,
I got like 3 more.
Yeah. let's see. My likes. Oh my goodness. I just love all of the pirate world and talk, and Young did such a great job of continuing to make it as though like I'm on this boat. I can smell the water, I can feel it sting in my eyes, I can see all these vibrant colors of gems through the water, like the whole entire thing. And then when she gets into a little bit more about what it means to be on like the Gem Council and the Trade Council and like all of this stuff, I was very much pleased because it's something new. You know, it's not some fantasy world where we're living with elves or vampires or something that's supernatural. It's just people on a ship that are pirates. You know?
Yeah.
They're pirates. They're traders. They, you know, are literally scraping stuff off ships just to gain money for their next meal, whatever those little things
Barnacles.
are. Clams, something, whatever they are.
I thought it was a barnacle. Yeah.
So I really did like that a lot about this book.
I agree. I had that too. The gem stuff was really different. I've never read where they're trading gems. And what was she? A gem surfer? What was she? A gem
trader or gem sage.
Gem sage. Yeah, that was new. I've never read that before. I didn't know the sea had gems in it. Is that a thing, or did she make that up? I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's pearls and clams.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I think she might have. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not skilled in the art of gems.
Yeah, I don't know where gems come from. One thing that, you know, pirates are not great people, technically. They steal, they rape, they pillage. But she kind of turned that whole bad pirate thing that they are into something good, that, you know, they're traders. Whether it was the alcohol or I'm thinking the mullen was the sails. Is that what they make their sails from? The other thing they were trading? Yeah, so yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree with all that. I liked that this book...
Oh, sorry.
I like that it was never predictable. Like, that's one of my biggest issues with books in general, is if I can predict it, I'm not going to enjoy the book. And I never knew where this book was going. And the plot switched several times, which is fine. I don't have a problem with the plot switching like that, because it was doing something and going somewhere and it made sense. But yeah, it was not tropey. It was not formulaic. I didn't predict anything. And that was a big old plus for me.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I really, really enjoyed that as well, because it's like there's so many times that you and I read books and it's like you can see things coming from a mile away, because it's what happens when you read books for a living or for fun, and that's your hobby. And, you know, you start to pick up on trends and tropes and all of this stuff. And Young was just very surprising, because it kept me like guessing what was going to happen, because how the book starts off, I'm like, when did that happen?
Yeah, I didn't remember.
And how long is she going to be there? And then all of a sudden now this other thing is happening, and so is this and this, and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Saint in this book.
Mm-hmm.
He was my favorite. He was my favorite. Him and a few others, but I just was like, he was exactly what I had hoped him to be in this book. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I loved all of them. I'm not going to give too much away, because a lot of it's spoiler, especially if you have not read this book. The first one, you're not going to know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to ruin it. So, but I love Saint. Loved him.
Speaking of Saint, I liked all the relationships, and I'm not talking about like the love relationships. Like, there were some pretty good friend relationships that I'm not going to say because it's spoilers. But Saint is one of them, and there are a couple more that I'm not going to say because it's spoilers. But I did like the friendships, I should say, in this book.
Yeah. For sure. I love that we're able to see Fable grow so much. I feel like she aged multiple years in this book because of everything that was happening in her life and how it all starts out. And I like the fact that she did grow and it wasn't based off of a man. I love that she got it all on her own, in her own time. She made her own mistakes. So I really like that about her.
I liked that. I'm looking for a line here that I liked. Her mom dies in book 1. We never really meet her mom, and we don't really learn too much about her in the first book. But in this book, I felt like I got to know her mom a lot, even though she's never on the page. And I wish she had been in the book more. Like, there were moments where there were some dark moments for Fable, and I didn't cry, but I almost teared up. It was so sad. And there's a good line that she's having with a character. I won't say because it's a spoiler. But she says, let me see if there's anything spoilery in this quote. Okay, my chest felt tight, making my heart skip. I didn't like that this woman, a stranger, knew more about my mother. I didn't like that she knew more than I did. And you kind of feel like she lost her mother when she was really young and she didn't really get a chance to know her a lot. And this other person comes in and they know more than her. She didn't like it. I just thought that line encapsulated the loss that she felt about her mother. So yeah, I did like the mother character, even though she wasn't on the page. She wasn't alive in the book.
Yeah, but you still felt like you had a relationship with her. Like, that's what was so great, is because, like, her mom is such a mysterious character in the first book, because you're even thinking, like, different things about how did this happen? Did that really happen? Is she still alive? Like, we had some theories as to how we thought this book was going to end, which we can get into the spoiler. But there was even, like, where she references, like, feeling her mom's presence. And when you find out what actually is happening, it's just so beautiful, because it's like, that's her one memory that she can hold on to for the rest of her life, and nobody can take that from her. Even with the quote that you just gave with another character in the book, it's like that is her own thing for her mom that no one else knows about. Yeah. So I liked that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do like the fact that we got more closure with why West was entangled with Saint and what all of that was about, because we weren't really quite sure why he was still so attached to Saint, because it seemed as though he could just kind of scootily boot out of here, and there wasn't really anything tying him to Saint. So I liked that, because those were some missing pieces from the first book. Yeah. We were like, what's going on?
Yeah, and it kind of set up a good, because you know how books go, especially when you have a romance. Everyone's in their honeymoon phase and something big happens, and then here comes the climax, and then I hate you, and then everybody separates, and then we all come back and live happily ever after. Like, that's how romances go. And I liked West's story and what was going to be the cause of their breakup, which I'm not saying that happened or didn't happen, but yeah, I wasn't expecting that. And it was an interesting twist to his character. So I agree with that. My last like was, there was one big theme in the book, and I'm not going to really go into it because it's a spoiler. I'll go into it in the spoiler part. But in the first book, like I was saying earlier on the podcast, they don't want to love because love has consequences, whatever consequence that is. And in this book, they really did talk about how loving someone affects them and everyone around them. It was a huge theme, and I was afraid she wasn't going to do something with it, and I was going to be really upset, but she did, thank goodness. But they had several conversations that were very mature for a YA book, very honest, and I was like, thank you for having an honest mature conversation about love and relationships and everyone around you. And I really did like, there were only a couple of those conversations, but it was impactful.
Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with you there, because I was like, am I reading YA here? Because the conversation was so mature, and it's what you would hope for these younger characters that are making these dynamic decisions, and it's like their moral compass is just not quite pointing north like it's supposed to. It's pointing the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were so many moments, but there were pivotal moments within this book that you really could see that she pulled that into our face, where we could identify that that's what that was, instead of the latter. Let's see. My last thing, I think you already talked about it, was that there was just so many great twists and turns within this book that I had no idea what was going to happen, and it was exciting. Mm-hmm. That's what makes for a good, fun read, is because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't anticipate it, so you're just like, just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
So that's all I have for our non-spoiler.
I do want to say one more thing before we get into the spoiler edition. I don't think that Adrienne Young gets the attention she deserves. She's a pretty good YA writer. I don't understand why lore is getting no. This book is leaps and bounds better than this book. And this is her only her second series she's ever written. And The Sky and the Deep was good too. Like, she writes really good female characters, and her worlds are always like, Sky and the Deep was Viking, I believe. Did you read Sky and the Deep?
No, but I know the background of that one. That one is
Viking, and now we're on the sea. So she always has like a really great world. Her characters are her romance is usually pretty good. She has pretty good themes, found family. Like, she's a really good writer, and I just feel like she doesn't get the attention she deserves. So if you have not read Fable or Sky in the Deep, I encourage you to do so, because I think she's one of the better YA fantasy writers that we have right now.
Oh, 100%. There are so many other junk novels we've read. Mm-hmm. Like, Grave. So bad. But it's getting all the hype in the world.
Yeah.
Because people love it.
Yeah, no.
So...
this was better.
All right, guys. Well, that is all we have for our non-spoiler edition. So, like we mentioned in the beginning, if you have not read Fable and Namesake, please hop out now, because we're about to spoil everything. And we're going to do that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
All right, done.
What should we start with? Let's start with Holland.
Let's do it.
Because I think that was the biggest reason why we didn't give the book a higher rating than it could have had. Holland ends up being Fable's grandmother. That was not a reveal in book 1. Like, this was new to us, right? Okay.
It was new information, and so when we're being brought in to see Holland on Bastion, or whatever the city's name
Bastion.
is. What?
Bastion.
It's kind of this big reveal moment, because you're like, why do you look like me? Why do we look similar? What is happening here? And so the whole idea of Holland was fantastic. You know, she's this super high-end gem trader. She's ridiculously wealthy. Oh, and she's in battlement with Saint, her father, who has no idea that this is his wife's mom. Mm-hmm. And that Fable's the granddaughter. They don't know that with each other. And it's just this big, giant circle that you're just waiting for this moment to happen, because there's some conspiracy going on where Holland is trying to gain her place in the Trade Council, because she basically wants to own the sea. She now has the gem trade all under her belt. she wants to also be able to trade everywhere else and get her trade council ring and whatever, and it has to be voted on. And, you know, she's trying to bribe the crowd with gifts or whatever, and all of this stuff. And it's great because she's making, you know, Fable sign a contract, and then lo and behold, West goes and signs his name away because she's trying to steal her granddaughter away. So then that way her granddaughter can find this one stone that they're all looking for and all this stuff, right? And then it's like, we get to the big wind up and you're like, that's it?
Yeah, I felt like she was too smart to fall for that. I'm like, so she didn't like double check Clove. Like, you have to be leery of this person. You can't just take him at his word that, oh, Saint did something bad to me and I don't work for him anymore. Come on. And then you trust a known, like, the Auster family, his family, the Roths. Come on. It's like you're dealing with these people, and then I was like, oh no, that's too easy. That was just way too easy. And she should not have been that dumb to fall for that.
Well, and it's almost like the persona that we're being shown is that she has so much wealth and so many hands and so many jars that no one can double cross her. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, when it happened, and we're getting the rerun of everything happening from Fable in that moment, where she was explaining like, oh, well, he was just covering his bases, when literally we just heard him cover his bases with everything to make sure they took her down. I was just like, how? What? You know, and basically she just loses her trading license. She's no longer able to trade ever anywhere else. She has to give up that big empire, but she's still walking around rich as all get out.
Yeah.
It's not like she's banished off the island. I was waiting for like some big, like, we're dumping you in the ocean, tying you to a treasure chest type of a thing, and you're sinking to the bottom because of how cutthroat these pirates are. Even with Clove and him murdering people on the, Zara's crew? Or Zora's crew?
Zola, something like that, yeah.
Zola. I'm okay. Mm-hmm. But, like, we see this, like, cutthroat, like, you're going to pay for what you're doing, and it's like she just gets off too scotch-free.
That didn't bother me so much. Just
I bothered.
It was just that she just fell for that BS like that. I'm like, woman, you know better than that. Like, and she could have been like, she could have been a much better villain. Just like she did not have any problems with using people. I was actually kind of waiting for, I almost called her Namesake, Fable, to be like, I think that's why my mom left you, because you're using her because she's a gem sage. And she never really had that conversation with her about that. And maybe that was just for the reader to figure out, who knows. But she really could have been a nasty, nasty woman. And it just wasn't villainous enough for me.
Yeah, and it was almost like she wanted Saint's title, but I guess she just didn't play nasty enough. It was almost like she's the underlying villain in this story. She's just not that good. Mm-hmm. So that part really bothered me. That end climax scene, I was like, are you joking? Get her. Hello. But it was almost like, it was just a little bit like too good to be true. Like they're catching her on like all of these accounts, and I'm like, how did we get to all these accounts again? Like I get it, like that they're pulling it from somewhere, but it was too like checklisty.
Okay.
So yeah, that part I didn't like. Okay. My biggest issue here with this book was the fact that we get introduced to Koi, right? He is a brand new character.
He was in book one.
This book. He was in book one. Okay, when I say brand new, we thought he was gone. Now we never seen him again. He was in book one. He tried to kill Fable on Javali because they're druggers, and it's like a fight for your life type of thing. You're not screwing me over, all this stuff. And so we get introduced to him, and, you know, we get to go on the big quest for the stone and whatever and all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden he just falls off the face of the earth. Like, they don't find the stone that they're looking for. And then he's just gone. Gone. Not only him, but Willa and her need to be free of being a crewmate life is, like, talking about how she's going to leave the Marigold and all of this stuff, and she confronts Saint about it. And not Saint. She confronts West about it, her brother, and then it's like, we don't hear anything else about that situation at all. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the book, they're both in Javali together, hanging out.
Well, it was set up, though. So Koi and Fable did have a conversation about how he wanted Javali. He was working for Javali to be a port. And so that was set up. Was it set up well? No. I don't know why he had to go with her to get the midnight. Like, he was pointless because it was West that was down there with her. Then she was by herself. It was that whole thing was only a chapter. Like, that's why I was like, it could have been a little bit longer. We could have spent a little bit more time. So that didn't bother me. And Willa, like, him and Willa were making, I don't know if they were romantically involved, but they kind of had a little bit of tit for tat. Once again, it could have been a little bit more. It was only like twice, and it was very quick. And so when they did kind of drop off the face of the book, I kind of knew where they were because she did set it up. So it didn't bother me too much.
I was waiting for it. It bothered me because I knew why he was there in the first place. I had accepted it, you know, and it's like his one line where he's like, once you're a Javali, you're always a Javali. Like, we stick together through thick and thin, even though we will kill each other on our own island. Out in the world like this, like, it's you and me together. Are you watching him, and I'll watch him over here type of a thing. And so I loved that connection between her and him because it's like she made the choice not to kill him, and it ends up working in her favor because he ends up being a nicer guy and whatnot. But I just kind of like we said in the non-spoiler part, I just wanted more of these secondary characters. It just could have just given me just a little bit more. It didn't need to be 500 pages long of a book. Just a little bit. Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
All. It's fine. And it's also because, like, I missed Willa's spite because we had so much of her in the first book. And I was like, come on. So.
I guess she had her moment in book one, and we didn't need her.
Her date. When Hamish didn't get nothing, that poor guy.
I had forgot who he was. I was like, who the hell is Hamish? I don't even know who this character is.
He's the logger.
I know now, but when he was introduced again, I didn't remember who he was.
Right?
Yeah.
It was really... I thought there was another person on their ship, too. No?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Let me see. Okay, so the theme of, and this is like one of the reasons why I like the book a lot, is the theme of love and how it affects people. And we saw it two ways. So with Saint, he didn't want anyone to know that Fable was his daughter and Isolde was his wife or baby mama. I don't know if they were married or not. And then we saw how that affected Fable because she didn't have a relationship with her father. She felt alone. And then we see the exact opposite with Fable and West, where they are openly in a relationship. However, because West makes poor decisions and he doesn't consult his crew. They don't like that. They get their boat taken away, and they're like, they don't like that because their love has affected negatively on their crew. So it's like this whole thing of, do we keep our love quiet to protect everyone, or like Saint did, or do we openly share our love and make changes in how we do that? And I was afraid she wasn't going to wrap that up, but she did. And then, of course, at the very end with Saint, and he like hugs her in the open, I was like, oh, yay. It was cheesy, but it was really sweet. I loved all of that.
I know, but I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
I felt like she deserved it after all of that. I'm like, this poor girl has not known love the way that she should, you know? And it's like, there would be these moments where she would reminisce about how, like, she would almost want to be reprimanded by Saint because then at least he was looking at her. He was communicating with her and all this stuff. And so it's like those moments where she's like, I know he's going to come, but maybe he won't, because you know what? I don't mean anything to him. And it's like how that all played out, because Saint had kept his love so quiet. He was able to protect her for that right moment, to be able to then unleash it. Like, I have held it in for so long, I can finally share openly. This is my daughter, and she's amazing, by the way. And hold up, you know, and all that stuff. But even with Wes, like, when they had that moment where he was like, I'm scared to be in love with you. Like, I'm scared. It terrifies me, because what happens in most books, the people that you love are the first ones that people go after when there's a threat or anything like that. So it's like, especially because they're pirates, you know, it's like, do you let people know that that's your woman? Well, you don't really want to, because they might take her away. But then it's like, you can't hide it anymore, but now you're making decisions where your crew doesn't have a say because you're terrified to tell them, because you love them and you know that you care about how they think about you, but you're trying to protect them all in the same way and all of this stuff. I mean, Wes just had this overbearing moment of trying to seize the day all the time to just take care of everybody. And there were moments where I was like, dude, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You cannot do it. You are constantly taking over. Let other people deal with it.
And I was worried that once again she wasn't going to address his savior complex, and the very next page she did. I was like, thank you, Adrienne Young, because I would have been very upset if Fable hadn't called him out on it.
Like, she's like, I don't need you to save me. Like, I'm doing just fine, you know? Yes, she wasn't sure about her decision, but yet again, it's another open and honest thing that Young shows us, because it's like, that doesn't usually happen in books. There's this like made up fantasy that they just come to have this epiphany moment, and it's like, no. Sometimes you make decisions and then you got to deal with the consequences of those decisions when it comes time. And she was ready to carry it out just to make sure her family was safe. She was all for doing it, and then he goes and does something underneath, and she's like, why'd you do that? Because now you signed both of us up for this.
Yeah.
I cannot leave you. I need to be by you always. If you have to go down, I'm going down with you. And she's like, dude, that's not the point.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he didn't just do that with her, because in a traditional YA book, it would have just been all about the love interest, but he was doing that with Willa too. And she was suffocating. Like, this is his MO. He was doing that to everybody.
Yep. Well, yeah, and when they finally called it out, because I liked the fact that even within the Marigold's crew, you know, with Aster and Paj and Hamish and all of them, when Wes made a bad decision, they told him. Like, they still stood by him because that's what family does. But, dude, next time talk to us about it. Don't just send us off into the wild blue yonder and just call it a day. But I really, I liked the fact that when we finally hear about what happened to Isolde, is that how you saying it? Isolde?
Yeah, I was saying Isolde.
You know, it's this open, honest answer. It's not this roundabout thing, because we thought that she was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
We did. I was like, that woman's still alive. The sea got her. She be all right. She's just singing away through the ocean. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and so when Saint finally shares, like, she literally got swept away from me. And that was it. And that moment of gaining that piece of information, and then his openness with how damaged and just alone he felt, because and helpless, because he couldn't do anything. He's this guy that has all these tricks up his sleeves, and he could not save the woman that he loved. And so it's like, that part I was like, a little bit sad, but okay. But I was okay. And then the whole idea about where this midnight gem was, and how Young kept bringing up the fact that, like, you know, I can just, like, sense my mother's presence here. Like, what is this? Like, when I'm around all these stones, you know, it's like I'm sitting next to her. And that beautiful imagery of what it's like to feel close to someone that you love, whether that's a smell or a color or a song or whatever it is. It's this connection that you have with loved ones. And then come to find out that that stone was actually hidden in her necklace. It's like, oh, well, she wasn't just having the feeling of her mom. It was the feeling of the stone, because they all have different, like, songs and emotions that are felt out. And I was like, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. I was once again, we read a lot of YA. A lot of it is formulaic. And the whole time she looked for this midnight, I was like, you know what's going to be in a ring somewhere that her mom had on, or maybe she like gave it to her and had her shove it in her nose or something. I don't know. It's always that. It's always something that they gave you when you were 2 years old, and here it is. And I knew it was going to be something like that, and it was. However, when she goes to look for the midnight and she's just like, my mom is here. I only hear my mom. I don't hear any midnight. And she was actually hearing her mom, because that's what she remembered with that stone. I thought she did a really good job of doing that. I was like, well, she just kind of spun that trope on its head, because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting it to be, because when he gave her the necklace, I was like, oh, here we go. It's in the damn necklace. It's not. Exactly. You're trying to fake us out and say it's green. It ain't green. It's purple or whatever. And sure enough, she like knocks it, and then it's in there. But then when she kind of changed it and was like, oh, this is what I was feeling down there, I was like, okay, I like that. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so unique, because it's like, you know, it's not something that's been passed down, and if you would have just turned it over or gotten it read for you, or looked at the tattoos upon your arm.
Yeah.
No. It was just the way that she spun that imagery. I was like, yes. And then when they actually find the midnight, I loved the fact that they didn't just clean it out either. They left it there for now, because they didn't need it. And I liked that, because it's like, this is a whole different spin on pirates. You know, the whole entire thing is to pillage and plunder and, you know, gain as much as you can to be able to live the high life and not have to work anymore, you know. And I liked that they were like, we don't need it now. I'm sure we'll need it later. But for now, we're going to keep it there.
Yeah.
Because the world isn't ready for this.
Yeah. And then she could always go back there if she wanted to feel the presence of her mom. She could just go back to that. It's Fable Scary or something like that. And
Fable Scary, yeah.
Dive down.
Scary, Irritary, whatever it's called. But I also liked, with this book, I mean, we got more and more of, like, Fable did dirty work as a dregger. That is dirty, hard work. And I say that, it is emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting. You're in frickin' salt water from dawn until dusk, like, coming up for air, being pulled back down, looking for gems, putting it back up, coming for air, going back down. Like, oh my gosh. Like, I would not want to do that. And then, like, just being subject to the elements that were there, like the storm scene, I was like, oh my gosh, someone's going to die.
I was waiting. I just knew somebody was. Usually when you have an ensemble cast, somebody's a goner. Ask Lee Bardugo. And no, nobody died.
People got injured, but nobody died. But I was like, oh my gosh, Lorinda, can you imagine just, like, the way that she wrote it, I could just see the storm coming in. I was like, oh dear God. And the sand swirling everywhere and you can't see nothing. And I liked the fact that they did not find the midnight out there. I was going to be a little bit pissed if they did.
Yeah.
Because the book is so, like, it's not a long book. It's actually a quite short book. And I'm like, I swear if they find it out here, I'm going to be so ticked. And then when they didn't, and they're like, well, because we just got to go back and just do plan C now.
Yeah.
Okay, we just risked our lives out here, and they had to leave all those gems that they upturned there because they weren't looking for it. I'm like, oh my goodness. So
I think that's it. That's all the spoilers I had.
Yeah, I don't really... I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. If we didn't already. No, we talked about that. Yeah, no, I think that we got it all.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us for another thrilling and enthralling episode by the Novel Universe. Our next book is going to be Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. It is book 2 in the Chain of Gold series. So join us next time. And if you have not, please like and subscribe to our channel. And you can follow us on Instagram, The Novel Universe Pod.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
One of those.
Novel Universe Pod? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
But until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.